In my recent video, we looked at the 10 best decks in standard format for the Pokemon TCG in April 2025. So if you haven't checked out that video already, definitely go take a look, because today we're going to be looking at decks numbers 11 through 20 roughly. And I've titled this the Rogue Decks of April 2025 because these are not the best decks. They're a little off meta. They're the kind of the top 20 decks. So let me know what y'all think about this video and the decks that I'm including here. Are they rogue? Are they tier 2? What would be a better name for the video? But we're going to get into this, look at 10 different decks today that were not in the top 10 decks video. Before we get into all of that, if you're looking to get better at the game, I offer several different resources over on my Metafy, including a complete competitive fundamentals masterclass, one-on-one coaching, and a new private community where you can talk to me and other members of the community about deck lists and the meta, and I'm posting quite frequently over there with new deck lists and my ideas and stuff like that. Today's decks will not be in any specific order, so let's just kick things off here with Hop's Zacian. So the Hop deck is getting a lot of play online, and today's decks will all be coming from play.limitlesstcg.com online tournaments. The Hop's Zacian deck is going to be focused on spreading damage around with Hop's Zacian EX's Insta Strike attack, which does 30 damage and then 30 to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. But we're going to be doing even more with that, of course, because of the Hop's package of damage amplifiers. We've got Snorlax's ability to make us do more damage. We've got Hop's Choice Band to do more damage, and our attacks will cost one colorless less, and we have the post-Wick Stadium card. Now, those tools and damage buffs only affect the damage that we're doing to the active Pokemon, so to help with the damage that we can put on the bench, we're also playing 2 Munkidoris and Dark Energies. Since the Pokemon that we're attaching energies to typically in this deck will be Munkidori for the Adrenabrain, Hop Snorlax for the Dynamic Press attack, which you can use for just 2 energies plus a Hop's Choice Band, the Maractus for Corner because that can retreat lock, and sometimes Blood Moon Ursaluna. So Hop Zacian won't be using any of the energies. We're never, ever, ever able to attack with its second attack. We're not trying to do that. We're poking and spreading damage around and trying to win the game like that. Next, we've got Roaring Moon. This is the new version, the post-rotation version of Roaring Moon. It's playing that full 4 count of Professor Sada's. We have lost Dark Patch to the rotation. Dark Patch was in Astral Radiant, so that is no longer available, but we've got Professor Sada's and energy switches. Of course, using the poison package here, you can get turn 1 wins with Brute Bonnet plus the baby Pecharunt with that Toxic Subjugation. Just on turn 0, you can go activate Toxic Powder, play down Perilous Jungle, Pecharunt Poison, and you can do up to 8 damage counters of poison that way, as early as the first turn of the game. But for the rest of the game, we're going to be focusing with Roaring Moon EX as our attacker, either Frenzied Gouging to instant KO things or Calamity Storm to do respectable damage while discarding your Stadium card. And we can buff the damage by just activating Poison, and we can put Capsule on our own Roaring Moon so it can't be poisoned by either our poison or the opponent's. And then we also have Binding Mochi as an option to buff our damage up if we are poisoned. Very similar to the Roaring Moon poison deck is going to be the Okidogi poison deck, which also is playing a Roaring Moon. Now, the reason I'm listing these as separate is because the Okidogi deck is playing 4 Janine's Secret and playing no Professor Sada's. So this version of the deck is going with Trolley as the ace spec, so you're going going second, Arven for Trolley plus Ancient Booster Capsule. You go for the turn 1 poison typically as your early attack, and then Janine's Secret is going to be your main energy acceleration here. Of course, also being paired with the 4 energy switches. Like I mentioned, Dark Patch is gone, so you're going to be using those energy switches to move around, to concentrate the energy onto one Pokemon, and also you can do things like attach to Munkidori, activate the Adrenabrain while it has the dark energy, and then energy switch that off onto the attacking Pokemon that you want. So Okidogi is going to be your main attacker here with that Chain Crazed attack. But Pecharunt EX also has a very usable attack. You can forego attacking it all by just leaving Baby Pecharunt in the active to chip in poison damage, and Roaring Moon EX is of course here as a backup attacker as well. Next we have Feraligatr, which did not quite make my top 10 decks list this month, although it did win Champions League Fukuoka back in February, which was the format that we are playing right now. Feraligatr is a really awesome deck though, so I definitely want to show it off here on the channel and talk about it. So what is so amazing about this deck is that you're using the Relicanth's Memory Dive to make Totodile's attacks, Croconaws' attack, and Feraligatr's attack all usable in this deck. And then Feraligatr has the Torrential Heart ability. Once during your turn, you may put 5 damage on this Pokemon, and then this Pokemon's attacks do 120 more damage this turn. So the 5 damage counters is also really awesome because you're going to use that to your advantage with Munkidori's Adrenabrain. So you're buffing your attacks by 120, so that means your Big Bite can do 130, your Reverse Thrust can do 150, and your Giant Wave can do 280. But then you also have up to 2 or 3 Adrenabrains to move damage around as well on top of that. So you have a Retreat Lock option with Totodile. You have a Swing and Switch option with Croconaw, so you can like switch into Mimikyu or Milotic. And then you have that big attack of Giant Wave from Feraligatr. The Milotic, of course, against Dragapult. Most Dragapult decks don't have a great answer to Milotic, so you can just go double Milotic and attack with that as your main attacker, and you'll beat some Terra decks just with that. Next up, we've got Froslass Munkidori Bidoof. This one got 2nd place in a pretty big online tournament. The one I got 3rd place in with Terapagos Buffalant. So Froslass Munkidori Bidoof, I kind of think of it as an underwhelming deck that good functioning decks and players who are able to adapt to alternative styles of play on their opponent's side can handle this deck pretty well. It does underwhelming amounts of damage, although the damage can rack up if they evolve enough Frostlasses, get enough dark energies on Munkidoris. They also like going things like Counter Catcher, up something, Unfair Stamp, Item Lock, and then try to stick something in the active for turns on end. And every turn that something's active and just stuck there and your draw passing, the Freezing Shroud from Froslass is ticking down. So this can be an annoying deck to play with, play against, with all single prizers on the board, moving damage around with Munkidori, item locking with Itchy Pollen. They've got TM Devo in here. I like that some of the lists play Gravity Gemstone. I think that's something that should be thought about in this deck list as well to make things even more annoying. So yeah, I do acknowledge that it can perform. I also saw it got top 16 in the recent Champions League Miyagi in Japan. And of course, it got 2nd place here in this large online tournament. But I do think the deck can be underwhelming against strong decks, against some specific styles of decks that maybe don't need to bench so many things. And like I said, against experienced players who have seen this kind of strategy before. Next up is Future Hands. So this is a pretty simple deck. You're going to use Iron Crown EX's Cobalt commands to buff the damage of your future Pokemon. You're going to use the Miraidon's Peak Acceleration to maybe take some early KOs on smaller Pokemon while also accelerating energies to your Iron Hands. And then you're going to use Iron Hands EX's Amp You Very Much to try to take more prizes than you should be. Even things on like 2 prize Pokemon. So if you have 4 Iron Crowns on the board, your Amp You Very Much is doing 200 damage. So you can even knock out some larger Pokemon like maybe an opposing Mew EX, or even without the damage buff, you can knock out Squawkabillies because they're weak. This deck will be using those heavy baton tool cards to keep energy in play, hopefully, and then also electric generators to accelerate a couple more energy throughout the game in addition to those early peak accelerations from Miraidon. This is a pretty simple deck that just wants to go take a knockout and then amp you very much a couple times to end the game. Not too many moving pieces going on, but that helps keep it consistent in what it's trying to do. Next, we have Pidgeot Control, and look who played it. It was All Out Blitzel. Nobody was surprised. So, post-rotation Pidgeot Control, what have we got going on here? We've got this Knockly, the basic version of Garganacl. It has Corner 10 during your opponent's next turn. The defending Pokemon can't retreat. Now, the fighting type corner is good because there are Pokemon that are resistant to fighting. And the problem with Retreat Lock in this format for the Retreat Locker is that you no longer have double turbo energy to make Sob do 0 damage. And you no longer have Mawile that does 0 damage with the Retreat Lock, and you no longer have Radiant Alakazam to fix your opponent's damage so that you can infinitely Retreat Lock. Noctowl gets around that because you can corner Pokemon that are resistant to fighting, doing 0 damage to them, thus infinitely Retreat Locking. So that's kind of the main plan here. To go with that Retreat Lock, they've also got 2 Calamitous Wastelands. The retreat cost of each basic non-fighting Pokemon in play is +1 colorless more. And then they've also got Defiance Vests to keep the Noctowl alive, and also Munkidori to move damage off of it to keep it alive. So very much focusing in on the Retreat Lock. And since they only play one of that card, they are playing the Redeemable Ticket, which is the janky kind of replacement for Hisuian Heavy Ball. This card says count your prizes, shuffle them, put them on the bottom of your deck, then take that many cards from the top of your deck and put them face down as your prize card. So essentially, it guarantees that as long as you have more cards in your deck than you do prize cards, you're going to get a new set of prize cards that guarantee whatever was in your prizes is no longer in your prizes, and then you can go search for that card that you need. Up next, we've got this new Azumarill Noctowl Pidgeot deck. So this Azumarill is actually a really cool card. It's a stage 1 psychic Pokemon. And if you have any Terra Pokemon in play, it can use Double Edge for just 1 psychic energy. So this attack that would normally cost 4 and this card that would normally be unusable is now a really strong single prize attacker doing 230 at a time. Also, it's a psychic type, so that means Lily's Clefairy can be played in the deck to activate that fairy zone that says dragon Pokemon are now weak to psychic, so Azumarill can one-shot Raging Bolts and can one-shot Dragapults. And then kind of the core engine of the deck is going to be Noctowl to get your Pidgeot set up, and then you use Pidgeot's quick search throughout the game to get everything you need from there. The reason they chose Cornerstone as the Terra Pokemon here, because you do need a Terra Pokemon for Azumarill to work, you need a Terra Pokemon for Noctowl to work, you need a Terra Pokemon for Area 0 Underdepths to work. So the reason they chose Cornerstone is because it's annoying to gust up and knock out because it can't be hit by abilities, so it will stop that targeting down of the Cornerstone in a lot of cases. Next is Mamoswine. So Mamoswine is a cool Pokemon card. It has 340 health. Its damage can get pretty high with the Rumbling March, and it has an ability that searches your deck for a Pokemon once a turn. So it has high HP, a high damaging attack that only costs 2 energy, and it has an ability that could be considered a consistency ability. Now, the issue with the deck is that it prompts you to make a deck that's focused on stage 2s because that's how you get the damage increased on Rumbling March. And there are just a lot of moving pieces here and a lot of Pokemon that you don't want to get knocked out from turn to turn. So for example, if you set up 2 Swinubs and they get Torrential Pumped, now you have no Mamoswine possible next turn. Or if you set up 1 Torchic and 1 Pidgey and they knock both of them out, or you set up 2 Pidgey and they knock out both of the Pidgeys. It's very easy to get your pieces sniped, especially multiple at a time, with Wellspring Ogerpon being a meta card in the meta right now. Pretty popular and strong. So I think this deck's weakness is that it is prompted to play a lot of stage 2 lines, and then you just don't have enough time and resources to get them all set up if your opponent disrupts it in any way. But it is a cool deck, and it can definitely win games, and like to see Mamoswine out here featured in today's video. I should also mention that the deck gets to play the new Blaziken EX and make use of this card with the ability Seething Spirit. Attach a basic energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon, and the deck even plays a fire energy, so you could potentially use Blaziken EX for its attack that does 200 for a fire and a colorless as well. And we're going to wrap up today's video with this Slowking Xatu deck. I know this is one that's been around for a while, and I've gotten a lot of requests to cover it. The problem with this deck is that, you know, like most of the decks we're talking about today, why are they not the top 10 decks? Well, they're just not as consistent and reliable to do what they're built to do when compared to the top decks, or they match up poorly into some of the most popular decks. So right now, that case would be that Dragapult and Terrabox, which are seeming to be the top 2 decks in both strength and popularity, they can take multi-knockouts in one turn. So you can remove all of your opponent's not twos, or all of your opponent's slow pokes, or you know, remove the support that keeps your opponent playing the game, and then Iono or Unfair Stamp, and then the deck becomes miserable. So decks that cannot survive multiple things being KO'd plus your hand getting disrupted are typically going to be falling into this batch of decks, where they have a cohesive strategy and they have realistic win conditions, but they rely on your setup and your hand not getting disrupted, which is just a little bit too hopeful in the meta that we're currently in. So those are the other decks in the format today, the rogue decks, the decks number 11 through 20, whatever you want to call them. I'll have the deck lists for all of them linked in the description down below, as well as ways to support my channel with affiliate links and coupon codes. Check those out, and if you're interested in my coaching over on Metafy or my free educational articles on Substack, that will all be linked down there as well. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon TCG content, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.